Welcome to the Botanical Gardens, Shaldon, on Valentine's Day 2021. It's been a dark and rainy January, and mild, with the sap beginning to rise, until the beast arrived, that is, last Tuesday. What a shock. Thank goodness all my preparatory walks had been completed by then. I have been walking here a lot this winter. It has been somewhere relatively dry and safe underfoot. I'm sure it is familiar territory for many of you, so please join me today on this special day when the birds are supposed to choose their mates, of course. And let's look for signs of spring to remind us that warmer days will soon be with us. These first photos are to remind you where to turn into Horse Lane off the Torquay Road if you are arriving by car, where there are a few parking spaces on both sides now. Here straight away we have hazel catkins and primroses, our first signs of spring. I remember both being on the nature table in my infant class as a child. Primrose, from the Latin for the first rose, and a connection with Valentine's Day as their petals were once used in love potions. This walk could be a feast for the senses. Just use your imaginations. As we set off down the lane, on the left, we have an unassuming woodland flower, a heliotrope, a member of the butterbur family, filling the air with the wonderful scent of vanilla. The herbalist Nicholas Culpeper in the 1600s said its powdered roots were useful for skin blemishes. So there you are. As we round the corner, we come to the house where Mr. and Mrs. Homeyard lived in Shaldon. They bought Nest Cottage from Lord Clifford. They had a London home and business in Camberwell, where William Homeyard had made his fortune through sales of liquor fruta cough remedy. Its ingredients include licorice, caramel, onion, linseed, Iceland moss, Irish moss, and chamomile flowers, which is why on today's walk I will be adding a little extra about the flowers we see and include some of the old herbal medicinal properties that they were said to possess. And as liquor fruta was sold as a remedy for health, so we hope this walk will raise your spirits and boost your immune systems. I think Mr. and Mrs. Homeyard's relationship might have been something of a love affair. In an early 20th century census, Mr. Homeyard's first wife is no longer living at home, but is back in the Birmingham area, living off her own means. But another lady, Maria Kemp Roberts, is mentioned as a guest in his household. Future wife number 2, she was related to the Cornish Kemp family, which included an admiral and captains who sailed with James Cook, and some notable clergy. The couple spent many enjoyable times here in Shaldon, where her grandmother had lived in earlier years. William died in 1927, aged 70, and Maria, 19 years younger, was left a millionaire 4 times over in today's money as a result of the number of sales of the 12 fluid ounce bottles of Liquifruta at 2 and 9 pence a bottle. In 1912, the BMA had examined and guaranteed it poison-free, as a pamphlet issued by the Liquifruta laboratories explained, inferring that it was scientifically proven, rather than being from a factory in a side street in Camberwell. Maria wanted Liquifruta inscribed on his gravestone, but a local vicar did not approve, so Ator Fucil, a Latinesque phrase, appeared instead. In the late 1920s and 30s, Maria threw herself into building projects and became very personally involved in the planning of Cartrefe bungalows and the Hamiltons on the Torquay Road, and of Broadlands and the Homeyard cottages, 54 houses altogether. She had bought parcels of land previously, all fields, from around £3,000. She had a private garden created on the land just opposite her house in Horse Lane, where we now stand. These gardens have been described as the beating heart of Shaldon. I'm going to add personal reminiscences and a few brain teasers as we go along today to keep our minds occupied in these strange times. Welcome to Nodlars and to the Lakinatob Snedrag. Not quite palindromes or even anagrams, but perhaps a reversible anagram. I live with someone who reads backwards as easily as forwards, so I'm getting quite used to this. Through the gate, and wow, smell that amazing fragrance on the left from a Christmas box or Sarcococca, not Streptococcus or Staphylococcus. I often get these words confused. I once bought 2 infant classes here from Bishop's Tainton School for our summer outing. Some parents felt coach trip costs and entrance fees such as attractions as Pennywell Farm had become so prohibitive, so we got parents to bring carloads of children here, pretending the cars were all ships. We were all shipwrecked at these gates upon the island called Homeyards, where we followed clues to find treasure and met strange fairy folk as we ran amok. I brought in my front passenger seat the school skeleton, which I hid somewhere, to be disclosed later. So here we have the first board welcoming us to the gardens, where Maria had 365 trees and shrubs planted, one for each day of the year. The route we'll take today will be a circular one, along the top paths, then round and back along the lower path to view the pond and back up to this gate again. Enough of my ramblings. Let's get on with our ramble and listen to the birds as we make our way to the castle. A tweet for the soul. This fantasy castle was built in 1931 as an ornate kitchen for Mrs. Homeyard when she had tea and bridge with her friends and enjoyed the view of the river mouth and port. A view not obscured by trees in those days, and a beautiful view, you must admit. The kitchen was to the back right of the fireplace. As the castle decayed after she died, the roof disappeared and the lead was squirreled away and recycled as lead shot and possibly toy soldiers. But how lovingly it has been restored now. When my son was 5 and 6 years old, with a January birthday, we came up here with a little barbecue and cooked sausages for him and his friend and drank hot chocolate. I also remember from my teaching days how we used the formula for teaching poetry, getting the children to use their senses to help them to think about what to write. And here outside the castle we have a poem created by a Shaldon school pupil for you to read. You can hear a wren sing her very loud song. She sings a long phrase with a trill in it, and this is why she's called the opera singer. Carefully down the steps and turn left past a lovely hellebore in an unusual basket. A simple meditation when you are in your garden, walking to town, or just sitting inside close to your window, is to look for 5 things to see, 4 things to hear, 3 things to touch, 2 things to smell, and 1 thing to taste, and be thankful for them. It helps to bring about a sense of calm, and I am incorporating this idea in our sensory walk today. Listen to the song of the robin. A robin's song is like trickling water, trickling down, wistful in autumn, but taking on a more upbeat energy in the springtime. And on to the main Torquay Road entrance, and another board showing a timeline of the Homeyards. When she died in 1944, the gardens were sold to the Teignmouth Urban District Council for £1,000 and were finally opened to the public in 1955. And more delights as we look down to the rill and the pond and the view beyond through the trees. Here is another hazel with catkins. Spot them if you can. Hazel leaves, when used externally, were thought to relieve the pain of hemorrhoids. Fascinating. And here's a dog rose, used by the Greeks. The name dog was adopted by the Romans, who believed that the ground-up roots could cure a man bitten by a mad dog. And of course, rose hip syrup is full of vitamin C. And the hips make very effective itching powder for stuffing down the back of anyone who is irritating you too much. Daffodils are now emerging. They'd be out on the town if there was anything to do in Teignmouth, as the rhyme Daffy-down-dilly has come to town suggests. They are sometimes referred to as the Lenten or Easter lily, but they aren't a member of the lily family. The bulbs have narcotic properties and are used for all obstructions in the body, says Nicholas Culpeper. Here in the wall we pass navelwort, or pennywort as it is sometimes called, from the shape of its leaves. And further along the path, if we look down the grassy slope on the right, there is a glimpse of the grotto. The grotto was made from Torbay limestone. On my school trip, this is where we laid the skeleton, and a very large toy bear was positioned above the bear's cave, as we called it. Now it is known as the Witch's Cave, where old Mother Gum came down to the woods for tea. Our next stop is at the Stone and Cob building. Originally it was a blacksmith's forge and then a pigsty when allotments were here, before Mrs. Homeyard bought the land. Later it became William Sears' office. William Sears was employed by Maria to design and create her pleasure gardens. He had just finished the landscaping at Lindridge. People can remember when he had his drawing board and plans up on the walls in here. Today it is known as the gardener's hut, and horseshoe bats and swallows have taken up residence. Here too we have a child's poem, The Gardener's Shed, for you to read. And there is a stone seat carved in memory of William. This area and planting is known as the Italianate garden. There are lovely views from here of the Nodla Slee and over the hill to Atexi, which we cannot see. Further up the X, a real palindrome. This is where we had our picnic on the school trip at Goldilocks Cottage and enjoyed rolling down the grassy slopes. And so we continue along the upper path, passing Valerian just coming into flower. A relation of this one was used during the First World War to calm people upset by the air raids. Before that, it was used as a sedative for epilepsy, or St. Vitus dance as it was known. The name is derived from valera, Latin for healthy, and Valeria was an early herbalist who is recorded as the first to use it. There's a blue tit singing here. Sometimes it sounds like a bye-bye my mother-in-law, bye-bye my mother-in-law, like a tiny saw. So around past the second of the Torquay Road entrances and down to the lower entrance from Broadlands, both with boards that give the same information as before, but with the plan of the gardens correctly orientated for that spot. More birdsong, this time a great tit. Sounding like someone pumping up a bicycle tyre. Long-tailed tits are here. Often in winter, the tit families flock together, and you get mixed tits, so to speak. And we keep walking to view the Italianate garden from below, with a lovely cascading rosemary for remembrance, used as a smudge, burnt like sage for headaches, and it is a reviver as well. Also, if you boil it up, it can be dabbed on as an astringent. Further along, the path takes us under the arch made by a weeping beech tree. If the leaves were more open, we could here fill our sandwiches with new beech leaves, as people used to do, and to use our sense of taste on this walk. And don't forget that on a hot walk, yes, there will be hot walks one day, standing under a tree will cool and rejuvenate you and refresh you with the oxygen it gives off. And so onwards and upwards to the pond. Here we had stationed the school caretaker to stand guard over the floating bottles, which contained the next clues on our school treasure hunt. When a pair of children arrived to find their next clue, he would fish out a bottle with his net and let them retrieve the paper and set off for the treasure. I think it was a box of chocolate coins buried there somewhere. Here today there are treasures of a different sort. Beautiful green hellebores and a bed of lesser periwinkles on the right, given as crowns or garlands to people due to be executed in medieval times, as a symbol of immortality. Periwinkle hath an excellent virtue to staunch bleeding at the nose in Christians, I love that bit. If made into a garland and hung around the neck. Culpeper also said, back to our Valentine's Day theme, that it is good for fertility. If a man and wife eat the leaves of the periwinkle together, the mind boggles. Next is our mystery plant. I've searched through various books and asked gardeners, etc., but I'm not sure of this one. A purple borage? Or a pulmonaria or lungwort without any spotted leaves? Over to you for ideas. And meanwhile, all this time, we have been blessed with the marvellous fragrance of the Daphne. It's as beautiful as was Daphne herself, no doubt, probably why she was chased by Apollo, but was changed into a tree by an earth goddess to save her from being ravished. Now we have the snowdrops or milk flowers, a feast of pollen for the bees. The fair maid of February, gathered by village maidens to wear as a symbol of purity. And more primroses, flowering early, before many of the flying insects are around, and so many of the flowers go unpollinated. Shakespeare says, "The pale primroses that die unmarried." They are also good for concoctions to aid rheumatism. And more birdsong, a magpie this time, with its machine gun chatter. Now on the home straight. This photo shows you where once stood the dark, tall and creaky Cupressus macrocarpa avenue of trees. These were always a bit scary, as if the black dog Padfoot with eyes like red coals would chase you up and get you, like the beast from the east, before you got to the other end. And here we have the crows. They can still remember the trees. And notice too the Alexanders just emerging, a greenish yellow juicy member of the parsley family, the first to come out in the English hedgerows, introduced by the Romans to eat, buds, leaves, stalks, roots and all, full of proteins, carbs, fatty acids and flavonoids. Yum yum. And back to the entrance, now posing as an exit. So to finish our walk in love, we have a picture of the Kemp coat of arms with 3 wheat sheaves and the motto as well. I'm sure Maria definitely reaped in joy for all that she had sown in tears. We've seen, heard, touched and smelt, and now we are home to taste. A very welcome and warm mug of chamomile tea. And thank you, Teign Heritage Centre and Homeyard's Botanical Gardens. And thank you to all the authors of the many leaflets, books and newspaper articles that have helped with the content of this talk. And an enormous thank you from Eileen to Sam for the amazing wizardry that has brought this presentation to life.